Okay, at today's Huddle station we're going to be talking about systems of either linear equations or linear inequalities. The important part for you to remember is that a system is at least two equations. So anytime you have two, it's going to use the word system. Let's take a look at number one. The line graphed on the grid represents the first of two equations. So we see two equations, we know it's going to be a system. If the graph of the second equation passes through these 2 points, which of the following statements is true? Well, when they give us a description but not an image, we want to draw our own. So negative 12, 20. You go left 12, up 20. There's a point. The other point is 4 over 4, up 12. There's a point. So we have our second of the two lines. It looks like it's going to be parallel, but in order to be sure, we would have to check the slopes to make sure that they're never going to hit. So that's down 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4. Negative 2 over 4 is equal to negative 1/2. And now we check the slope of the other one to make sure that it also has the same slope. Here's a point, down 2 over 4. That is indeed the same slope. So we know they're parallel. They will never intersect. So what must be our answer? There's only one solution? No. Remember that a solution is where the two lines intersect. That's the solution, the part we care about. So it can't be A and it can't be B. It has no solution. They are parallel lines. That's correct. And remember, the only time it'll be infinitely many solutions is if the two lines were directly on top of each other, such that they were intersecting at all times. That's why it would be infinitely many. But that was not the case that we had in this situation. All right, that's example 1. Let's take a look at example 2. Which graph can be used to find the solution to the system of equations below? This one has at least two ways to answer the questions. First is the method where when you see two equations, you just type them into your calculator's scratch pad. So we go menu from the scratch pad, the calculator part. 3 for algebra, since what we're dealing with has both letters and numbers. And then 2, since we're wanting to work with a system of equations. That's why it's important for you to remember that 2 is a system. You're solving the system. At that point, you'll get a little message that says how many variables and are they X and Y, so you'll hit enter at that point. And you will then type it in exactly the way you see it here, the top equation on top, the bottom equation on bottom. When you hit enter, it will give you an answer. In this case, go ahead and type it on your calculator, and let's see if we get the same answer. All right, you should have gotten 0, negative 4. If you didn't have enough time, keep typing, push pause on the video, and make sure that you can get that. If you can't, you need to raise your hand and get some help. It's important that you can do that. So which of these answers? The solution that it gave was a point on the graph, 0, 4, and only one of these graphs shows the two lines intersecting at that location, which is the solution. The second way you could have solved this is simply by graphing them. We've already gone over how we can graph equations in standard form. So you would simply graph the first equation, hit enter, then hit tab to get the graph entry bar up again and graph the second equation, and you can just look at the pictures. Those are the two examples that we'll go over for Huddle. However, let me just give you a couple of hints on some of the other questions. Question 3, we've already talked about with question 1. Here's another example of where you're just going to solve system, but let's look at the answers on number 5. You're going to have to type in both equations, so you do menu, algebra, solve system, but sometimes your calculator gives you weird answers. If your answer is going to be no solution, the calculator will give you a statement that says no solution, which is fine. The problem comes in is if it's a star question and the answer is supposed to be infinitely many, when you type this into your calculator, the calculator would return a weird answer that looks something like this: C1 over 4 minus 1/2 comma C of x, or C1 parentheses, something along these lines. The numbers can change. When your calculator gives you this type of answer, that means no solution. The calculator's trying to say, by labeling something as C1, that means for any constant, for any number, the answer is true, so that's what makes you pick infinitely many. You're going to have to type this in and see what is the solution that's given out. 6 is the same way. And just a hint on number 8, C is for children and A is for adults, so you know which side it is. As we've said before, the only part we care about on systems of linear inequalities is where they meet, so you would simply look at the axes, the appropriate axis, to answer the question. And the last question I'll give you a hint on is question 10. This is the system of linear inequalities, so you can see the inequality here instead of the equal sign. In this question, you would simply graph both of these, and the first one you graph would tell you which side to shade on. I'm not going to tell you which it is, but it would shade one of the sections. And then when you graph the second equation, it would shade another side, whichever it is. And the one that is double shaded, that would be your answer. Now, I haven't shown you the correct answer, or if I did, it was by happenstance. You've got to graph both of those and see which of these 4 regions is the double shaded region. All right, that's all. Good luck.